Welcome back to another episode of Sleeper Seahawks. I am Dan. Glad to have you. Hit that thumbs up if you would, please. Subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 1,000 subs. Let's get there by the time the Seahawks face off against the New England Patriots in just a couple of weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow. Actually, that's how close we are to meaningful regular season football action again. And with the Seahawks right now, there has been a lot of discussion around the quarterback position this week and last. Not because of Sam Darnold. We haven't seen him in a game yet, but mostly because of Jalen Milroe. And despite the fact that it's been widely reported throughout training camp this season by the guys that cover the team on a regular basis, that Jalen Milroe looks to be dramatically improved as a passer in practice, something I can echo from the week I spent at training camp at the beginning of this month. I thought I saw a different player. It still has not translated to games, not even preseason games. He especially struggled on Sunday night against Tennessee, throwing 2 interceptions, taking another big sack for the second week in a row after holding onto the ball too long. And for me, that shines the spotlight on Drew Lock, and we're going to have a conversation about him today. Do the Seahawks need to invest more heavily in Drew Lock and keep him around longer? Now, the contract situations, we'll get into the details of that in a moment. But Jalen Milroe, of course, just entering into the second year of his rookie contract, and so he is under contract through 2028. I'm not here to dive into Jalen Milroe. We've done that before. We'll continue to do that. I still feel like he's a prospect worth developing because of the raw traits. I still think there's a potential NFL starter in there. But for the purposes of this discussion and the way this Seahawks roster is constructed and the fact that they are smack dab in the middle of a championship contention window where winning every single week is the priority, it's the question of when might they be able to trust him as the backup? Could that happen as soon as 2027? Based on what we've seen in the 2 preseason games so far, that seems like a bit of a stretch. Drew Lock's about to turn 30 years old. And of course, he's, I've referred to him before as Sam Darnold light in the sense that, Darnold was the 3rd pick in the draft. Lock was a high 2nd round pick, but he was drafted by the Denver Broncos with an eye on him being the franchise guy. Had some uneven performances there, didn't go all that well, and they obviously gave up on him, shipped him to Seattle in the Russell Wilson trade. And then he went to the New York Giants for a year before coming back to Seattle. But having a strong backup quarterback is more important for winning teams than it is for rebuilding teams or even teams that need a bridge quarterback. So I thought I would look at this in a number of different ways. First of all, he's always been comfortable in Seattle. He's played his best football here. Now, these numbers aren't dramatic. For his career, 59.6% completion percentage. That is 63.2% in Seattle. The touchdown interception ratio, virtually 1-to-1 for his career, 1-to-1 in Seattle. Yards per attempt is up about a half yard. The passer rating is 3 ticks higher, though. But we've seen him perform on a big stage, 2023, when he got the opportunity to step in for Geno Smith for 2.5 games. Of course, we all remember the Monday night game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where he engineered a 90-plus yard drive, took him down the field, the beautiful touchdown throw, as good a throw as anyone in the NFL could make in that situation, to JSN for the game winner, essentially at the buzzer. So we've seen him do it under the bright lights and in big moments. And he's been especially good this preseason. 21 out of 27, almost a 78% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a passer rating of 110.7. Now, you can see by the yards per attempt there, pretty low, 5.3. He's been very clean, efficient, and reliable. And I think this is a good thing. Now, in the first game against Dallas, he did have 2 deep shots. One, I believe, to Jake Bobo, one to Montori Foster Jr. that were overthrows. He just missed those guys. Otherwise, those numbers would have looked a lot better, and that game against Dallas would have probably turned out differently. But I think this says more about Drew Lock as a positive thing than a negative, because we've always known the arm talent's there. I mean, if you lined up all the NFL quarterbacks and put him through a battery of tests, he might come out with a top 10 arm in the league, just as far as pure arm talent. Watching him in practice is a joy. Like, the arm strength is legitimate, and it comes so easily. It's very athletic, as he is, really, for a guy his size. He was a great basketball player in his time. But it's the fact that in this preseason, he just looks in command of the offense. He's taking what defense gives him, what the defense gives him. And, you know, I've said this a lot probably through the last 20 years of evaluating prospects and evaluating quarterbacks. Give me the gunslinger and give me the opportunity to try to reel him in, rein him in, and make him more efficient than the game manager, and you're trying to turn him into a surgeon down the field, a Bo Nix, if you will. And I think we're seeing that from Drew. We certainly are this preseason. He's been very efficient. It'll be interesting to see if he plays at all Friday against Kansas City. I suspect, as the team did last year, that they might give Jalen Milroe the entire game. The other thing is, we know that he is beloved in Seattle, in that locker room, by the players, by the head coach. Here's a quote from Mike McDonald. Really great quarterback. We love having him. Really great quarterback. We love him. I love having him around. So great for our football team. We've heard very similar comments from general manager John Schneider as well. They were really excited to get him back. They wanted to keep him around 2 years ago, but he was presented with an opportunity to compete for the starting job in New York for the Giants when Daniel Jones was coming off his ACL injury. And it was an opportunity to work with Brian Daboll there in New York, and that didn't work out in his favor, really. Jones ended up recovering pretty quickly, and Locke did get some run at the end of the season. Had that one great game, if you remember, I think it was week 17 against the Colts, where he had 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions, ran for another touchdown. That was fun to see. And I kind of went around, and these are my own rankings. This is my opinion, not based on career stats and career accomplishments, but trustworthy, proven, reliable backup quarterbacks in the league right now. And this is a list that I put together, and I've got Locke 5th. Mac Jones obviously proved his value last year for the 49ers. Marcus Mariota has done it at a couple of different spots, but has been very, very reliable. Joe Flacco now firmly in the veteran backup portion of his career. And Davis Mills, who's 3-0 as a starter, I believe, for the Texans, and has performed really well for them. And then I've got Drew Lock kind of slotting in there just after Mills, just because Mills has done more. I mean, 3-0 is pretty tough to beat when he's had chances to start. And then I got Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston, Tyler Huntley at 6, 7, and 8. Huntley went 2-0 last year while spelling Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. And then Winston, of course, the former starter. A lot of upside, a lot of, oh crap, what did he just do? Is still in his game, but a guy that's really reliable himself. So I've got him as the top 5 backup quarterback in this league. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the contracts stack up. Mills is getting $7 million a year average annual value, as is Marcus Mariota. I thought it was crazy at the time when they signed Mills to that deal. I thought in the moment maybe it was a little bit more of a reflection on their lack of confidence in C.J. Stroud than it was that they thought Mills was that valuable as a backup, because they were likely negotiating against themselves, I would think. And then Minshew at 5.75. Of course, he was brought into Arizona with the idea that maybe he would be a bridge. Maybe they would move on from Jacoby Brissett, but he's getting 5.75. Jameis Winston there at $4 million. Mac Jones at 3.5, and then Drew Lock at $2.5 million average annual value is great value. His cap hit in 2026 just $2.75 million. That's a steal, in my opinion. And it really does beg the question, based on the continued struggles in game situations that we've seen from Jalen Milroe, should they be thinking about extending him? And should they maybe even do that now? They've got the cap space currently. They'll have the cap space next year. You have to wonder. The value of a backup quarterback, I think if you want a tangible example of how important that is, look at the San Francisco 49ers a year ago. Brock Purdy gets hurt early in the season. Mac Jones comes in and does yeoman's work as the starter. And even performed really well in games where he was banged up. His knee was hurt for a while. I think his shoulder, there was some question whether or not they were going to have to turn to their third quarterback, and Jones just kind of gutted it out. They don't go 12-5 last year and make the playoffs without Mac Jones. That's where the Seahawks are in their contention window, and that's why that position's so important. I have had many people throughout the preseason this year tell me they should look to trade Drew Lock and just go with Milroe as a backup quarterback this year, save a little salary cap money, and save a roster spot. The Seahawks almost never carried three quarterbacks on their 53-man roster for years and years, all through the Pete Carroll era for sure, until they drafted Milroe a year ago. And I would be shocked if they don't commit to doing the same exact thing this year. It would really shock me if they expose him to waivers on the cut to 53. If that happens, though, it also wouldn't shock me if he didn't get claimed and they could bring him back on the practice squad. And then it's been suggested to me that, well, and Locke himself has said, look, in interviews, he said, I want to play. I love Seattle. I love, Sam, and I love being a back, but I want to play. Are there opportunities, though, that will present themselves this offseason for Drew Lock? Well, this is what I think that might look like. I looked all around the league, and when you account for teams that either have an established franchise veteran quarterback or the teams that have a highly drafted young quarterback that they're not going to move on from or give up on over the next 12 months, these are the five teams I think that will definitely be looking for quarterback answers in the offseason and might consider bringing in a veteran as potentially a bridge or a stopgap starter. Remember, and I know we hear this every year, and things change. Injuries change. Some players regress. Some players come out of nowhere and enter the discussion. But when you look at eligibility and which players are going to be out of eligibility and which players are going to be in position to be drafted high in the 2027 draft, a class that's considered very, very strong throughout a number of position groups all the way through the draft, but particularly potentially at quarterback, both at the top of the draft and also littered throughout. I would say all five of these teams are going to be looking to draft a quarterback next year, with the possible exception of number one, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Aaron Rodgers has announced he's going to retire after this season. But what's been one of the big storylines there in Pittsburgh this preseason? It's how good Drew Allar has looked as a rookie, and how Mike McCarthy seems to have already kind of fixed some of his mechanical issues. They also are very high on Will Howard. And so, maybe they just roll into 2027 with both those guys and let them compete. And so I've got them at the top of the list there only because we know their starter is departing, but I don't necessarily think that they're going to go out and look to invest in another veteran. They might go with one of these other young guys. Cleveland Browns, who knows what they're going to do, but very, very likely they're going to be, A, drafting at the top of the draft because that offense is going to be a mess, and B, looking to draft one of these guys, right? An Arch Manning, a Dante Moore, a CJ Carr, all those names that we expect to be near the top of the draft. They clearly don't believe in Shadur Sanders if they're going to commit to Deshaun Watson as they did this week. And Dylan Gabriel, I don't even know if he makes the 53-man roster, the third-round pick from just a year ago. The Arizona Cardinals, similar situation. Brissett's deal will be up. Minshew, I think, will still have another year on his deal. I believe it was a 2-year deal. But they believe in Carson Beck. They only spent a third-round pick on him, though. And so if they end up at the top of the draft and there's a guy they fall in love with, I don't think Carson Beck would prevent them from drafting a quarterback. And then there's the Jets, Geno Smith. Cade Klubnik they drafted this year. Maybe he becomes part of the solution. But if Smith has a good enough year and they like him enough, and certainly all the signs of this preseason point to, I mean, he had a spectacular performance in week 2. Maybe he sticks around a little bit. And then the Falcons are hard to size up. They have Tua Tagovailoa. They still have Michael Penix. I don't think they're going to give up on Penix anytime soon. So I think when you look through this, I don't think there's going to be an obvious opportunity for Drew Lock out there. And even if there is, there's going to be other options. Mac Jones will be a free agent. He's younger. And he's done it at a higher level recently, like in games last year, starting and winning for the 49ers in a playoff race. I think the ship may have sailed for starting opportunities for Drew Lock. And so it may behoove him. He could then become essentially what Geno Smith was in Seattle before he got the opportunity to start after Russell Wilson was traded, and just continue to come back on 1 or 2 year deals. Now, what would that look like? Did a little bit of a projection, kind of looking at those other deals, kind of taking into account his current deal, what he agreed to sign for, the salary cap going up, those kinds of things. Something in the area of 2 years, $10 million, with that APY getting up closer to $5 million. You know, maybe they would have to approach the $7 million for Davis Mills, although I think that's an outlier. I just think that's a contract that didn't seem to slot in with the rest of the veteran backup contract market. Something like that. Maybe you go 2 years and $12 million. But again, he's so well loved in that locker room. He's such a good fit. He fits the offense. The offense fits him. And he's proven he can perform if the starter should go down. I think it's a topic of discussion. The timing of it would be interesting. There's no need to do it now. But I absolutely think it'll be a priority for them to potentially get done next year before the start of free agency. If they were to do it now, the potential downside of this is the message it would send to Jalen Milroe. I mean, that would be a clear shot across his bow that we don't believe in you enough to look ahead with an eye on 2027 to think that you could be QB2. Because I think if we're sitting in this same spot a year from now and Jalen Milroe doesn't start showing in-game situations that he can look and perform like an NFL starter or a high-level backup, I don't think they commit 3 roster spots to quarterbacks in 2027, which would just put even more of a priority on having a solid backup. And why would you go out and get someone else when the guy that you love and you know can perform and is already a great fit in every way is already in your building? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If the Seahawks announced tomorrow they were signing Drew Lock to another 2-year contract, how would you feel about that? Appreciate you being here. Weekly shows here on Sleeper Seahawks. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. You can also check out my full-time gig where I do daily content over on the Seahawks Forever YouTube channel as well. But subscribe here if you would. We'd love to hit that 1,000 subscriber mark before the first game against the Patriots. And I know I've said this and I haven't put all the details together, but next week will be week 0. We're going to have a week with no games. I will solidify how we're going to do the fantasy leagues here. We're going to have a pick'em league through the Sleeper app. It's the best one out there for this kind of stuff. We're going to have a Survivor League. Those 2 are unlimited. I can have as many of you sign up as possible. And then I'll do a couple of different fantasy leagues too. Probably a standard scoring and maybe a best ball, or maybe a PPR and a best ball. Trying to figure out probably just on a first come first serve or a lottery type of system to fill out those leagues. But those details will be out next week, so keep an eye out for that. And the best way to really stay on top of all that is to follow me on Twitter so you don't miss out on any of that news. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Go Hawks.